So I was the biggest liar in the third grade. I used to lie about everything, mostly to make myself sound older and look bigger. I had a couple of cousins that were in the sixth grade, and they were already riding the metro by themselves. And they would come home and they'd say things like, "Dude, you haven't lived till you've been on the red line." And I'd be like, "Shit, I've only been on the orange line." You know? But I was a horrible liar. I would tell lies, and then I would get busted immediately in them. Like, I remember one time I told all the kids at school that I was like the best basketball player ever. It was amazing. But I said this like 2 minutes before recess. And suddenly I'm out on the court and everyone's like, "I thought you said you were good." And I was like, "Well, apparently I was lying." And then I would do my other go-to move. When I got busted, I would cry. So I was young for the third grade, I was small for my age, and I was a little bit of a bitch. So kind of a triple threat guy. And in the third grade, we participated in a pen pal program. And there was a nursing home that was like 2 blocks up the street from my school. And the teacher thought it would be like good community outreach. So she assigned us each a senior citizen with whom we'd correspond over the year. And I got this woman, Margaret. And as I started to write my first letter, I didn't know what to say because I never met her before. And my teacher said, "Well, why don't you start off by telling her your name, what grade you're in, and 3 things you like." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, dear Margaret, my name is Michael. I'm in the 3rd grade. I like the Washington Redskins, WWF wrestling, and oatmeal. What are some things that you like? Sincerely, Michael." And about a week and a half later, she sent me a letter back, and I opened it, and the nicest handwriting I've ever seen in my life. It was like that old school calligraphy handwriting that you don't see anymore. And it said, "Dear Michael, thank you for your letter. I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania. Later, my husband and I moved to Washington, D.C. to be closer to his job. You play football? Are you like Washington Redskins? Do you also play football? Signed, Margaret." And it seemed like a nice letter, but it made me feel small and young. She said she grew up on a farm, and like she had nice handwriting, and her husband had a job. I didn't have any of that stuff. And then she's like, "Do you play football?" I was like this big, and I sucked. So I started writing her back. I was like, "Dear Margaret, you grew up on a farm? That's pretty neat. I've never been on a real farm before. You asked if I play football. Well, I don't, but..." And then it occurred to me, this bitch don't know me. I can tell her whatever I want. I can lie. That's what I do. I crumpled it up. Let me get another piece of paper real quick. I said, "Dear Margaret, you grew up on a farm? That's cool, I guess. I'm a little bit of a city dude myself. You've never lived life till you've been on the red line. Hey. Do I play football? Funny you ask. Yeah, a lot, and I'm actually pretty good. In fact, I'll probably play for the Redskins one day. A lot can change in between now and then, but that's the current trajectory. Also, my dad's a fireman, so I get to ride a fire engine whenever I want. I'm not bragging, I'm just blessed to have had the opportunity. Anyway, holler back, Michael. No, Mike. And I folded it up and I stuffed it in the envelope, and I was like, I like the guy that I just wrote about. And by the way, like, what a gift for Margaret, you know? Started thinking about her getting that letter, and she was like, "Ooh, he plays football, my God. A fire engine," you know? I know, it's weird because she was old and I was young, but the heart wants what the heart wants. Except when I got my letter back, she didn't seem all that hyped. It was actually much more casual. It was just like, she said something about she used to ride horses when she was on a farm, and she was about to be a great grandmother for the 4th time. Nothing about my fire engine. So, you know, but it didn't stop me. Like, I still wrote her like 7 more letters over the course of the year, and in every single one of those letters, I filled it with like the most OG 3rd grade lies you could ever. All of them were like, "Dear Margaret, last night my dad told me to go to bed, and I said, 'No, you go to bed.' Signed, Mike." Boom. "Dear Margaret, yesterday I ate my lunch in the teacher's lounge." Boom. Signed, Mike. "Dear Margaret, this weekend I dropped $500 at Toys R Us." Cabbage Patch dolls for all the ladies. Signed, Mike. And you're probably sitting there wondering, like, was there ever like a shred of guilt? No, there was nothing. You know why? Because she was a pen pal. I was never going to meet her. It didn't matter. Then we cut to mid-May, and the teacher gets in front of the class, and she goes, so students, your pen pals, do you want to meet them? I think that was the first panic attack I ever had in my whole life. I was just like, what? No, we can't do that. We have to stay here and learn. We can't. Most panic attacks last about 20 minutes. I think this one was like 8 hours long. I took it all the way home with me. It wasn't until I was laying in bed that night that I made like one of the biggest life decisions I think I've ever made. I said, you know what? You want to be a big kid? Start acting like a big kid. Okay? Don't just talk the talk. You got to walk the walk. And I went to bed, and I got up the next morning, and I was like a new guy. I wasn't quite a man, but I was a big boy. And I went to school, and I walked with my class the 2 blocks over to Cherrydale Nursing Home, and we got there. And just to show you the difference between like then and now, there was no chaperones. It was just our teacher. And she handed each of us a slip of paper with a room number on it. And she said, be back in an hour. Which was fine with me, because I was a big boy. I got on the elevator, rode it up to the 3rd floor. I had 342. Got off. Hallway was long as a mug. It was like The Shining. And it had like one of those asymmetrical rugs that were like, you look down, you get vertigo. And I'm just walking down like a boss. The whole place smells like medicine pea. And I get down there, and I get to 342, and the door's cracked open a little bit. And I poked my head, and I said, Margaret, it's Mike. She said, come in. Yeah. I said, I'm coming. And I walked in, and I turned, and I saw her. She was sitting in the corner in a chair. And the first thing that I noticed about her was that she only had one eye. I mean, it took my breath away. The other one was just a socket with like bright pink, like Pepto-Bismol. And at 9 years old, it kind of messed me up a little bit. And I was like, wait, why wouldn't you like put that in the letter? Like, you should have led with that. That would have been the first thing I would have said. I said, dear Michael, my name's Margaret. I grew up in the 1800s, and I have one eye. I know I wasn't exactly honest in my letters either, but like, why are you trying to catfish me? And so I'm trying to be brave, but I just like went up against the window, and I'm just sitting there, and she starts asking me questions. I couldn't say anything more than one word. She was like, so you're in the 3rd grade? Yeah, 3rd grade. She's like, you're still playing football? I said, yep, football. What position do you play? I was like, catcher. Goalie. Fucking, I throw the ball. I don't know. Couldn't take it. And she goes, well, you ever ride horses? I said, no, I never rode a horse. And she says, oh, I used to love riding horses. But that was back when I had 2 legs. I definitely did not notice that. I was so scared that I had not looked down. I looked down on the ottoman. This woman had 1 leg up on there and nothing else. And I felt a pit in my stomach, and that big boy that I thought I was gone. And I bolted out of her room without saying another word, and I ran down the shining hallway, and I got on the elevator, through the lobby, took off without the rest of the class, and there was a park in between there, and I thought, this is the perfect spot to cry. And that's what I did. I hid behind a tree, and I cried for about 10 minutes. Little bitch, just crying. And finally, I put my stuff together, and I walked back. And remember I told you guys that I rode a bunch of fire engines when I was little? That was a lie. But I did almost get to ride in a police cruiser that day, because that was who they called when I came up missing at the retirement home. And I walked into the lobby, and there were all the school administrators and the police and my dad. And he looked relieved for a second, but pretty pissed. And then he grabbed me and he dragged me out. And I learned one of the greatest lessons of my life that day, and that is to always tell the truth. Unless you're never going to meet the person, then it doesn't matter. You can lie. Thank you.